everyone. My name is Suzanne Pachetti Johnson. I'm the program manager for Avenues to Wellness. We are a program of the Frank R. Howard Foundation, and this is our speaker series. Today I am very proud to introduce our guest speaker, Jeanne King, speaking on the topic Boys in Crisis. Jeanne has a long-standing both personal and professional interest in this subject because she is a retired special education teacher and she is the mother of a boy. Thank you so much for being here today, Jeanne. We really appreciate it.
Hi everyone, I'm glad to be here. I'm not an expert on this subject, but when I was still teaching, I became interested in how boys were doing, and there was a book that was published in the late 1990s called A Fine Young Man, What Parents, Mentors, and Educators Can Do to Shape Adolescent Boys into Exceptional Men, written by Michael Gurian. And I read that book and became interested in some of what it was saying. Around that time, there was a forum on gangs in Willits, on gang awareness in Willits. And I decided, based on what I had been reading in Michael Gurian's book, as well as other things that I'd run across, I thought that I decided that I would give a talk as part of this gang awareness forum. So I did that, and as a result of giving that talk, I was asked to write a guest column for the Willits News, a guest commentary for the Willits News. And so I wrote a column for the Willits News on the subject of boys and in what ways they were struggling in our culture. And then in 2019, I was a member of the Rotary Club, and in 2019 there were some things that were going on in the United States, some mass killings that involved young men. And I decided to do a presentation to the Rotary Club on boys. So this is how I put together the slideshow on boys. So it's basically my 2019 program that I did for Rotary, plus a few 2022 additions. So I'm the mother of a boy, and also as a special ed teacher, I taught at the middle school level and the high school level, and so I had a lot of boys in my classrooms. My program is about boys, but I've added a bit of adult male. I've included some of that because it's hard to separate the two since adolescent boys grow into adult males. So these are the mass shootings that made me think of doing a program for Rotary. So within a 6-day period, there was a shooting in Gilroy. This is in 2019. A shooting in Gilroy, a shooting in El Paso, and a shooting in Dayton, which left 34 people dead and 63 injured. And I found this graphic, the number of mass shootings in the U.S. between 1982 and August 2019 by gender. So the column on the left shows 110 mass shootings done by males between those dates, and only 3 done by females, and 1 involved males and females. So as a result of being aware of that, I decided to do this program for Rotary. David Brooks wrote a column around that time, and he said, the so-called deaths of despair, the contagion of mass shootings are a manifestation as well. These mass killings are about many things, guns, demagoguery, and the rest, but they are also about social isolation and the spreading derangement of the American mind. Whenever there is a shooting, there's always a lonely man who fell through the cracks of society, who lived a life of solitary disappointment, and who one day decide to try to make a blood-drenched leap from insignificance to infamy. Guys like that are drawn to extremist ideologies that explain their disappointments and give them a sense that they are connected to something. So this is a quote by William Farrell, and I don't remember who William Farrell is, but I love this quote because I think it's really important. It's time to go beyond fighting over guns and to raising our sons. So I titled my program The Boy Crisis. Boys are declining in a dramatic way in virtually every key metric. The key metrics are education, jobs, fatherlessness, physical health, and emotional health. Education, boys are behind girls in almost every subject, especially reading and writing. Jobs, 1 of every 5 men, 24 to 54, is not working. Fatherlessness, 1/3 of boys are raised in father-absent homes. The 1/3 of boys does not include boys that are raised with a stepfather or an adoptive father. These are boys who are raised with no male at home. Physical health, life expectancy has gone from 1 to 5 years less for males than for females. Emotional health, boys' suicide rate goes from equal to girls to 5 times girls between ages 13 and 20. So education. Female students, by and large, are outperforming males at every level of education. The data illustrating this overall phenomenon is quite compelling. Girls as a group tend to have higher grades, take more advanced classes, graduate high school at higher rates, and participate in higher education, both undergraduate and graduate school, at higher rates. Fewer than 10% of elementary school teachers are male. At Willits Unified, we have only 1 male regular classroom teacher at either Brookside or Blosser, the 2 elementary schools. And the only other male teachers at either site are special ed teachers. Sherwood School has no male teachers. And I didn't include the middle school and the high school because they tend to have more male staff. Boys account for 2/3 of the grades D and F given out in American schools. Boys account for the majority of high school dropouts. They are the largest gender gap in our schools, the literacy gap. Boys account for more than 80% of discipline referrals, and boys account for suspensions and expulsions at 5 times the rates of girls. By age 12, boys are 60% more likely than girls to have repeated at least 1 grade. Boys have an 82% greater risk of developing learning disabilities by comparison with girls. As I said, I was a special ed teacher at both the middle school and the high school, and the vast majority of my students were males. Boys are much less likely than girls to participate in student government, academic clubs, student clubs, and the performing arts. Some 70% of high school valedictorians are female. Only half as many boys as girls are members of the National Honor Society. Locally, enrollment, this was from 2019, enrollment at Sanhedrin, our alternative high school, is 4-to-1 male to female. This is a graphic of the impact of the difference between male and female enrollment in secondary education. And the chart goes from 1970 to 2020. About 1970, 62% of the college degrees were awarded to males, and by 2020, only 39%. And girls have gone the exact opposite. Jobs. So the areas of future job growth, example, health and education, are areas our daughters are preparing for. The areas for which uneducated boys have typically found jobs in manufacturing, agriculture, construction, are in decline. Men's and women's labor force participation rates in the U.S. You can see between 1948 and 2018, there was a great increase in female participation in the workforce, and at the same time, there was a significant decline in the number of men that were participating in the workforce. Father involvement. The fatherless live 4 years shorter over the lifespan than those raised in homes with fathers. I grew up in a home without a father, so I have personal experience with that. The problems of individuals, families, and societies correlate fatherlessness more than any other factor. Surpassing race, social class, and poverty, father absence may well be the most critical social issue of our time. Dr. Edward Crook. 1/3 of boys are raised in father-absent homes. More facts about fatherlessness. 60% of youth suicides are from fatherless homes. 75% of adolescent patients in chemical abuse centers come from fatherless homes. 70% of juveniles in state-operated institutions have no fathers participating in their lives. 85% of youth in prison had no fathers at home. 90% of homeless and runaway children are from fatherless homes. And 71% of high school dropouts come from fatherless homes. Physical health. So this is a chart that shows age-adjusted death rates for the leading causes of death, males and females. So as you can see, males have a much higher rate of heart, cancer, stroke, chronic lower respiratory disease, accidents, diabetes, flu and pneumonia, kidney problems, septicemia, liver problems, suicide, and homicide. The only one where women have a higher rate is Alzheimer's. Men's earlier death is not inevitable biologically. In 1920, American boys and men lived just 1 year less than women. Today, American boys and men live 5 fewer years than women on average. In just 90 years, the male-female life expectancy gap has grown 400%. Some believe the increase in the life expectancy gap is due to fewer women dying in childbirth. Fortunately, fewer do, but the life expectancy gap has grown in the past 90 years despite the fact that men have benefited more from the decrease of war deaths than women have from the decrease of deaths in childbirth. Emotional health. Suicide is the starkest indicator of mental distress. My mother committed suicide, so I'm well aware of that. The more boys advance through adolescence, the more their suicide rate increases relative to girls. Prior to age 9, boys and girls commit suicide at equal rates. It's horrifying to me to think that kids younger than 9 commit suicide. But from ages 10 to 14, boys' rate is twice as high. From 15 to 19, 4 times as high. And from 20 to 24, more than 5 times as high. Among the elderly, men over 85 have a suicide rate 1,300% higher than their female peers. Other deaths of despair. 68% of opioid overdose deaths are male in the United States. Men consistently have higher rates of alcohol-related deaths and hospitalizations than women. In 2016, there were 71 male alcoholic attributable deaths as compared to 19,000 females. Of the 3,612 homeless people who died in Los Angeles County from 2014 to 2018, 4 out of 5 were men. The average age of death for a homeless man in LA County is 51. 70% of homeless are males. More than ever, it has become deadly to be homeless in America, especially for men in their 50s and 60s, who typically make up the largest cohort of despair. Of the 809 homeless deaths in Alameda County from 2018 to 2020, 1/4 were from drug overdoses, half were from heart attacks, cancer, strokes, and chronic illnesses, and the rest were from accidents, suicides, and homicides. Last year in Sacramento County, at least 3 homeless people froze to death. These are profoundly lonely deaths. One measure of homeless male isolation is that men's bodies go unclaimed at the morgue at twice the rate of women. It's like a wartime death toll in places where there is no war. Maria Raven, an emergency room doctor in San Francisco. Some ideas. In education, develop boy-friendly reading and language programs. Balance Department of Education gender equity reports to serve both boys and girls. Work to create within the Department of Education a home for advocacy on behalf of America's boys. Fund and support the hiring of more male teachers, particularly at the elementary and middle school levels. Update teacher training programs to build an awareness to the different ways boys and girls learn in the classroom. Identify fatherless boys in the school system and offer them support. In work, expand the concept of man's work, examine boys' motivation to work, and mentor boys in the world of work. I know that Remco has a relationship with a high school in which they mentor some boys, and they brought over some of the same equipment that they use to help students at the high school to learn, to be able to transfer over better to work. So education and work, to improve access to career technical education, which are called CTEs. So it is said now that we don't have vocational classrooms, but we do. We have vocational classes, but they're called career technical education, or CTEs. So at Willits High School, these are the 10 CTE pathways as of 2019. I wasn't able to get current information, but our previous superintendent, Mark Westerberg, when he came here, Willits Unified had no organized CTA pathways. So he, with the help of the high school staff and the high school administration, created 10 pathways that will certify students in acquiring some skills. So there's agriculture, patient care, plant and soil sciences, graphic production technologies, financial services, residential and commercial construction, carpentry, millwork and woodworking, welding and materials joining, design, visual and media arts, and performing arts. So a student that takes takes everything in one of these series will end up with certified to have certain skills. So most Willits High School graduates now graduate with a certification in at least one CTE pathway. Even students that are going on to college are taking one or more of these CTE pathways. Sanhedrin students are now required to have been certified in CTE pathway in order to graduate. Fatherlessness, mentor boys who have no father in the home. Restore the family unit as a worthwhile goal. Start a Boys to Men club in Willits. Boys to Men is a community of dedicated men who are able to guide and support young, often fatherless boys on their journey to manhood. Physical health, spearhead an Office of Boys and Men's Health within the National Institute of Health, and coordinate a multi-pronged effort to reduce that life expectancy gap. Emotional health, educate parents and professionals about boys' emotional problems and potential solutions. Mentoring programs and creation of positive male rites of passage. Education and support for children of unwed or divorced parents. Build emotional literacy and expose your son to positive things and real heroes. So the White House has a council on women and girls. The Council on Women and Girls works with federal executive departments and agencies to provide a coordinated federal response to issues that have an impact on the lives of women and girls, including providing assistance to women-owned businesses and working to increase the participation of women in the science, engineering, and technology workforce, and to ensure that the federal programs and policies adequately take these impacts into account. The Council is responsible for providing recommendations to the President on the effects of pending legislation and executive branch policy proposals, for suggesting changes to federal programs or policies to address issues of special importance to women and girls, for reviewing and recommending changes to policies that have a distinct impact on women in the federal workforce, and for assisting in the development of legislative and policy proposals of special importance to women and girls. So that's the White House Council on Women and Girls. But there is no council, no White House Council for Boys and Men, none. Even though a council was proposed by a bipartisan group of 34 national class scholars and practitioners on boys, rumors were that the council was rejected by the presidential administration at that time, as it was felt it would take resources away from the White House Council on Women and Girls. And it's still not in existence. So I want to go back to what I read. So all these things that girls are being helped with through this council, boys don't have. Boys and men don't have. Assistance in male-owned businesses, participation of males in the workforce, changes to federal programs or policies to address issues of special importance to boys and men, reviewing changes in policies that have a distinct impact on males. So there's nothing for boys and men. So the coalition to create a White House Council on Boys and Men would like to accomplish 3 goals: investigate the status of boys and their journey into manhood, identify both surface and underlying problems confronting boys and men, and create a blueprint towards solutions. The main goal of the council is not to have government solve the problem, but to play an interactive role with industries, foundations, and school systems so that parents become aware of what the 5 crisis areas are for our boys. They need to know what are the causes of these crises and the solutions that can fix them throughout every level of society. So there's an Office on Women's Health. The Office of Women's Health was established in 1991 as part of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. The OWH, the Office of Women's Health, functions to improve the health and well-being of U.S. women and girls. A main headquarters is located in Washington, D.C., with 10 other regional women's health coordinators positioned around the country to implement local health initiatives. The Office of Women's Health works alongside federal government agencies, associations of healthcare professionals, tribal organizations, nonprofit charities, consumer groups, and state, county, and local governments. The Office of Men's Health doesn't exist. There isn't one. Even though being male now is the single largest demographic factor for early death. If you could make male mortality rates the same as female rates, you would do more good than curing cancer. Randolph Nees, professor of psychology, University of Michigan. So it would be wonderful if Adventist Health, other health organizations in Mendocino County would work towards a federal Office of Men's Health. The Odessa shooter was on a long spiral of going down. So it wasn't just something he went out one day and did. It was something that was happening for a long time in this young man's life. I'm hoping that we will reach out and see in what manner we can improve lives of the boys and young men in Willits, in our personal, community, and professional lives, that we be more aware in awarding our youth that boys are desperately in need. I hope our community can mentor boys and young men. What can you do? But for young men who are on the margins, the answer is to help them find purpose and hope. Faith, family, and friends, meaningful work, volunteering, and healthy hobbies all contribute to a sense of belonging. Young men will never find fulfillment playing video games all day. They won't find fulfillment from politics and social media. America's young men need purpose and real, meaningful connections to their lives. We need to do everything we can to help young men to find mentors who care about them and who give them a sense of community. Will Witt. That's it.
Thank you so much. Beautiful, Jeannie. Wow, those are some pretty disturbing statistics.
They have very disturbing statistics, but we don't hear them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the emphasis is so much on women and the men have been left behind.
Right.
It's kind of shocking,
Yeah.
isn't it?
So what I see is that because women for years weren't part of the workforce and they graduated or they went to college at lower rates than, so there was all this effort to improve girls' outlook, and in the process they put all this effort into helping girls and boys got left behind.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, why does it have to be one or the other?
I know. It's just it. It shouldn't be that way, but it is. Boys have been left significantly behind. So.
Yeah.